Was it?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about it.
I will, yeah. I'll tell you all about it. So, there's a lot there. First off, I had a great airplane, a really, really great airplane. And we take, I have a full-time mechanic, and across from my hangar is a Cessna service center. So like we're pretty buttoned up. I had two great pilots, good guys, good dudes, and trusted them, still do. But over the course of operating an airplane for years, I had sort of indirectly encouraged us to cut some corners on costs. If we could go into this airport besides this one because the landing fees or taxi fees were less, or if we'd fill up on our fuel instead of flying to one leg and then filling up and flying, because the fuel costs more there, we just fill up at our place. And there were all these things that we just kind of had gotten in the habit of doing that we didn't need to be doing, didn't have to do, just to save a little money.
It is not uncommon for pilots to try and save their owners money, so long as it can be done safely.
What I learned, I think, after all of that was that, man, when you're flying and you start stacking and layering these little, insignificant, and you're landing on a short runway, so you got to be perfect, you got to get it right. You're doing 3, 4, 5 things, making it more difficult, more challenging, and you're messing with your odds. And so I didn't really realize I was taking advantage of the situation until we got ourselves in a spot that we couldn't get out of.
Getting in a bad spot never occurs in a vacuum. It's a result of multiple poor pilot decisions that lead to the accident.
And the plane was going to take Amy to Texas after it dropped me off in Bristol. There's a perfectly fine airport in Bristol with a long runway.
Yeah.
But we decided to go to this other one because it was a little cheaper to get into.
Most airports with smaller runways will have cheaper services and cheaper fuel.
Shorter runway, down in a valley, closer to the racetrack, all these silly things that I should have never considered or worried about.
The owner is first and foremost paying the pilot to exercise good judgment. The shorter runway he was referring to is depicted here. The other challenge was having to conduct an instrument approach because of the cloudy conditions. A non-precision approach with a steep approach angle and a minimum altitude of around 1,600 feet.
Yeah, I didn't have my A guy in the captain's chair, but that wasn't never, shouldn't have been an issue. But I will say, it wasn't his. He didn't do anything wrong.
I disagree. It is a 2-pilot aircraft. His A pilot was sitting in the co-pilot seat, and when the B pilot asked him whether he should go around, the A pilot said that it wasn't necessary.
I put him in a bad spot. As an owner of that airplane, an operator of that airplane, I take full responsibility.
I disagree again. The danger was not the result of them going there. It was the result of the pilots putting them in danger because of their poor decision making.
For putting him in a spot where he was heavy, he had a short runway, and he had some tough terrain to get down quick in the hills of Bristol, Tennessee. And I just, those are all decisions that come from the top.
If the owner wants to go somewhere just to save some money or time, that's fine. But it's up to the pilot to determine whether it can be done safely or not. And if it can't be done safely, to let the owner know. So why would these pilots continue such an unstabilized approach? Well, I'll tell you, it's something called continuation bias, self-induced, and it's insidious.
And so we end up getting in there a little hot, and he's trying to get down and get slowed down, and we bounce the plane, meaning instead of kind of coming in and touching down and then nose down, it come in flat and bounced.
Way more than a little hot. The pilots were trying to force the aircraft onto the runway. Why? Because they knew they were too fast and they were running out of room.
And this was, again, I take a lot of credit for all the things that went wrong that day. I don't want to put any responsibility on no one.
I disagree. The pilots have been hired to ensure your safety first, and then get you wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
Because it's decisions that ultimately come down to the person who owns the airplane. We had gotten so comfortable that, man, we would take off and land not even buckled up
Where was the pilot's oversight?
in this plane. I was sitting there probably 5 miles out, 10 miles out, 15 minutes from landing that plane. And Isla, we only had Isla at the time. Isla's sitting on
And
Amy.
how old was she?
She's probably 2. We haven't talked to her about it. She don't remember, we're not sure when we want to have that conversation with her, but eventually one day. She's sitting on Amy's lap, not buckled in or nothing. And we're 15 minutes or so from landing, and she started fussing a little bit. And I said, here, just let her put her on my lap, which I'm, fate, just a random, I put her on my lap and I'm holding her. And we bounced that plane off the runway, and I've still got her on my lap. I ain't buckled in either. And we bounced that plane, and it went up in the air about 40 feet. And he tried to get it back down.
They should have executed a go-around right then. One of the core tenets of being a safe pilot is ensuring stabilized approach criteria, which didn't happen here at all.
And the second bounce just broke the landing gear on the right side and damaged a sensor.
The sensor he's referring to is called a weight on wheels sensor that requires all wheels to be on the ground before certain devices will work.
So you knew you were in trouble. You knew.
Yeah. The second bounce broke some stuff on the landing gear, and the plane, we had the thrusters out.
He's talking about the thrust reversers.
Trying to slow it down. We decided at that moment that we were going to try to do a go around.
I disagree. This was not a we decision. This was a decision made only by the flying pilot in the left seat.
At least get back up in the air. We run out of runway.
That go-around was never going to happen because the sensor he referred to earlier was damaged, which made it impossible for the pilot flying to command forward thrust.
And when we went to go full throttle on the airplane, the landing gear, with the sensors and the damage done to the landing gear, the plane would not allow the motors to spool up. And so,
Guardian mode.
Yep, he went into full throttle and nothing happened. It's sitting there idling 40 foot across the top, right across. So you got to make a decision. We're going to put the plane down. We're going to run out of runway, but we're getting it on the ground. So they put it on the ground.
I disagree. Without power, the aircraft could not maintain sustained flight any longer.
They hollered, hang on. They put it on the ground, and when they put it on the ground, it hit so hard all the blinds shut. And so you got no understanding of where the horizon is. Whether you're right side up or upside down, you don't know. And so all the dang blinds shut when it hit the ground the last time. And I've been in race cars and spun around, flipped upside down, and so I'm sort of I got a hold of Isla, and with the landing gear on the right side collapsed, and the plane went down on the wing and drug the wing and started to turn. We're still probably going 80 mile an hour. So the plane started to turn like this, and I'm thinking, knowing what I know about race cars and airplanes and all that stuff, I'm thinking, man, we're going to turn sideways and we're going to get up. We're going to get upside down. We're full of fuel, slam full. But that thing turned sideways and went off the runway, and on the other side of the runway was a creek, and there's about 6 foot bank down to the bottom of that creek. And it was probably about 15, 20 foot wide, and it skipped right across that, but it hit the other side of that creek pretty hard. And me and Isla went into the wall in front of us, wide open.
Yeah.
And as soon as we hit, I kind of turned my whole body, and I landed into that wall with my back here. And it was bruised from like shoulder to my ass. It was red, black blood bruised. It was bad. But I slammed into that wall, And we slid across the ground and come to a stop. And man, this plane is a pretty sizable interior, and when we come to a stop and I looked around, I couldn't even recognize it. Every panel, ceiling, everything was not where it was supposed to be. It's like somebody come in there and gutted it. And I'm looking for Amy, and she's laying on the floor. And so I'm hollering for her if she's okay, and she gets up. I'm like, you all right? She's like, yeah. And I start looking at Isla. And so I don't know, when I hit that wall, I know I hit it, but I don't know what I squeezed her or hurt her or anything, right? So I'm looking at Isla. She's crying, but she's got everything. Everything looks like it's headed in the right direction, you know, and I'm looking, that's really like 90% of my thought was like, is Isla hurt? Have I hurt her? What happened? She had a rug burn on her arm. She had her arm wrapped around me. When we went into that wall, it rubbed that carpet on the side of the plane, on the interior, all the way into that wall. That's how fast we went into that wall. It gave her a big burn on her. That's all she had.
With only 3 passengers available, there were plenty of seats and seat belts that were not used, unfortunately. One way of reducing your chance of injury is to actually sit in a rear-facing seat instead of a forward-facing seat, because your entire body absorbs the forward impact a lot better.
She had no bruises or nothing.
Wow.
So I handed her to Amy, and I said, Amy, check her out. I was like, keep looking at her. I think I've looked at her. You look at her. I'm going to get it. I'm going to go to the back and open up the hatch.
You thinking about the fuel at all?
No, I'm going to the back of this plane to open up the window, the back.
The door.
The plane's kind of sitting on this angle like this, and I was like, I ain't even worrying with that front door. I'm going to go to this back door and open it up. We can get up out of there that way. I go back there, and I'm turning this handle, and it ain't doing crap. And there's some thick black smoke coming out of the toilet. And so it's sooty, dark. And I look up front, and the 2 pilots is up there in the seat just flipping switches and flipping and doing. And they have a thing in their mind, like a plan. They got a thing. They got a list of things, and they have to all do them. And I've working with pilots, and ever since this happened, I've learned as much as I possibly can. And I've talked to my guys that I experienced this crash with, and they were like, when that happens, we know we got a thing we do. We got to set off the fire extinguishers. We got to turn this off. We got to do this, and do this. And so I just looked up there, and I was like, man, I can't believe they're not coming back here, getting us, let's get out of here, right?
Yeah.
But they were up there flipping switches, and I hollered at them. I said, hey, y'all, it's smoke coming in this toilet, coming out of this toilet. Let's go. It's on fire back here. So my B pilot, which was flying the plane that day, he come back there with me, and I thought maybe I just wasn't doing something right with that door, but he couldn't open it either. A chain link fence we went through at some point was wrapped around the back of the plane and wasn't allowing us to get that door open. So on the way out now is the front door, I think. And my other pilot is trying to open it up, and it won't open.
Yeah.
It won't. And he come back to us, and he's like, I can't get that door. Let's try this. I'm like, we can't get this door. And it's getting full of smoke in there.
Yeah, that's ain't good.
And Amy looks at him and says, try that again. Just try it again, the front door. And went up there and kicked it, and it opened up like a stove door about a quarter. And so we could climb up and out that way.
God.
It was like climbing out of a damn kitchen stove.
Wow.
And so we get it open, and one pilot climbs out, and he's out there on the ground, and I grabbed Isla, and I handed him to Isla. And then I climbed out, and this was a kind of a tricky moment. So we're all in a bit of shock. I'm still like, my mind is dominated by, is Isla hurt? because I don't know. Like
Yeah,
we don't know whether she got a broke arm, whether she got a head injury or nothing. We don't know nothing. And it's dominating my mind that I've gotten this little girl hurt in this plane. And as soon as I handed her to him, I wanted to get out of the plane and him give her right back to me.
Mm-hmm.
But he took off running away from the plane because the whole ground was on fire. And so I got out of the plane and I took about 5 steps toward him to chase him down because I wasn't mad at him, but I was like getting angry. Like I wanted my kid and I wanted to. And then I turned around and then got Amy out. Next pilot, we got the dog out. We had Gus with us. And we got everybody out. And I was the last one standing at the plane, and I looked down on the ground, and it was like a carpet of fire. The fire was like this tall. And the short grass, it was the strangest thing. It was just kind of like a carpet of fire across the ground. And the back of the plane was really lit up. And I took 5 steps, and that pain in my back from hitting that wall hit me, and I went to the ground. And the next thing I know, there's about 5 or 6 people on top of me trying to help me and get me in the ambulance. And then, I mean, I was running on adrenaline, hadn't felt a thing. And as soon as everybody was out and I started to move from that plane, all of a sudden it felt like somebody shot me with a gun in my back. I fell down on the ground and laid there. I couldn't move. And I was like, I think my back's broke. You know, they're like trying to drag me away from the plane, or we got to get out of here. It's on fire, might explode, all that stuff. I'm like, man, I can't move. My back is broke. And they got me in an ambulance somehow. And I'm in this ambulance. It's starting to move. And I'm the only one in there. And there was a guy sitting in the back with me, paramedic. And I was like, man, I have a wife and a daughter, and they are somewhere. He's like, they're in the other ambulance. I said, I really, really need to know if my daughter's okay. I was like, I need to really know. I can't wait another minute. And he's like, I ain't supposed to do this, but I'm gonna call. I know the person in that other ambulance. So he called him on the phone, and I got to talk to Amy and learn, you know, that they had Isla and she was fine. And that was really, really tough. And so that's kind of the dominating thought now every time you get in an airplane with your kid is, you know, you aren't giving them a choice to get in that thing or not. You know, you got to think, am I being selfish because I want to go on this trip? Is this something that they would do if they had an opportunity to raise their hand and say, I don't want to go? You know, and so we made a lot of mistakes and got careless, and we got lucky that day. I sat down with a pilot that I knew, that Joey Meyer, that flew with my dad forever. You'd met Joey. Mm-hmm. And I sat down with Joey and I said, Joey, help me figure this out. I got to work. I got to go back in a plane. I got to get back in a plane. I got to fly. And he's like, man, y'all, there were 3 or 4 things that there were 3 or 4 things you did before you ever got on that plane that if you didn't do, your odds are hundreds of times better. And he said, you got to set some protocols in place, and you can't never cross that line. And so we really did. Like, I knew I was going to fly again. I knew I was going to own another airplane. I knew I was going to go back to work. And so we set protocols going forward where we don't do instrument landings. If if it ain't a visual landing, we're not flying that day. I won't leave my airport if I can't get back in it. If we need to turn around and come right back. I'm not flying somewhere where the ceiling's below 700 feet. That's very aggressive. Like them, my pilots will tell you, I can land at 300 feet, no problem. Yeah. I'm not doing it. I ain't doing it.
Yeah, you don't need to. That's smart. That's good.
I've lived my life, and I'm in a spot where I can tell them, no, I'm not gonna make it today.